So I had a request to do a tutorial on how I make my steering wheel covers. So I'm going to show y'all how to make those. So you're going to start off with a piece of fabric that is 6 inches wide and your strip length like 44 to 48 inches. So I try to do 48 inches. Most fabrics, like if you buy them at like a craft store or something, are about 44 inches for the width of the fabric. And so sometimes I will add on an extra little piece. I'll cut about 4 or 5 inches and just kind of sew that on there. So I will just, this piece is about 48 inches long and 6 inches wide. So you can do it without the grippy material. If you do it without the grippy material, then I would recommend doing it closer to like 44 inches. If you're using a grippy material, then this fabric, so it's cotton. I use a cotton woven. It doesn't really stretch, but it does have a little bit of mechanical stretch. Like that's kind of just, it naturally stretches a little bit. So you want it to fit tight on the steering wheel. So it does, you can kind of see it stretches a little bit. So if I'm doing this without without the grippy fabric, then I will do it 44 inches, but I am doing it with the grippy material. And so I'm doing this about 48 inches. So I got this grippy material on Amazon. But you can get it a couple different places. So your grippy material, you want that to be about 3.5 inches because you don't want, so you can see about 3.5 inches because you don't want it to be super wide. You don't want to be as wide as this because you're going to kind of fold down your edges. And then you want, of course, the length of it to be the like 48 inches that your fabric is. So we're going to start off with, we're going to create our casing for our elastic. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to lay down my fabric with face down, so the wrong side up, and then we're going to put the grippy so that the grippy is actually on that. So you got basically wrong sides facing each other with that. And so then you're going to kind of just fold down just a little bit, quarter inch or so, and then you're going to fold it again. So you're going to kind of fold this way, fold this, and then I'm going to clip it. And you're going to do the same thing on both sides. So you're going to fold just a little bit. And you want to make sure when you fold over that second time that it is covering, sorry, I got some fuzz and stuff. So you want to make sure that it is covering like the actual like gripping fabric there. So when you fold it in, you're not going to fold it all the way to that, but just a little bit and then fold it over again. And I like to use clips. You can use pins, you can use clips, whatever. And you're just going to keep going all the way down the line. So I kind of just keep moving it down a little bit. Make sure you keep that grippy fabric centered there. And you're just going to fold that, fold that. But yeah, the grippy fabric doesn't have any stretch. Like the cotton fabric has a little bit of mechanical stretch. The grippy fabric does not stretch. So if I just use like the 44 inches or so that my fabric was, and I tried to do the grippy one. I tried that just to see, and it would not fit on my steering wheel. So you need that. So you're just going to keep going down the line until you have it completely folded down, all the way down, and clipped up. Okay, so I've clipped all the way down. I've gotten it folded over and clipped. And then I also have cut 2 pieces of elastic that, this is like 1/4 inch elastic, and then you want to do 22 inches in length for your elastic. And then we'll go to the sewing machine. Okay, and so to sew this, you're basically just going to do a straight stitch right down the edge. So you want to kind of get where you're just kind of right. Let me see if I can zoom in. You want to make sure that you're not like, you want to get just the edge of this, but not like too far over. So you're just kind of getting right at the edge there. So you'll just sew straight down. And so make sure again, you folded your thing over so that it would catch the grippy fabric. And so you want to make sure that you've got that. So you're just going to sew straight down and do that on both sides until you have, so that you have basically the casing for your elastic. Okay, so once you have it sewn all the way down on both sides, we are going to put a safety pin on the end of our elastic, one of our pieces of elastic, and we're going to just start threading it through this casing that we made. And so you're going to want to just kind of keep pulling it through, just push your safety pin. And when you get to basically 22 inches in, then I'm going to show you I like to stitch the end of my elastic into place because otherwise it could possibly pull through and then I have to start back over again. So let's see, I'm almost there. Hold on, I'll show you. It's kind of hard to do with a lot. Okay, so you can see my elastic is right there at the end of this. So I'm just going to put a few stitches in place just to hold that elastic. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a couple of stitches. And that will kind of help hold it as we're pulling the rest through, because it's going to get super tight, super like bunched up, because that's how you want it to be. You want your steering wheel cover to be kind of bunchy, because that's going to help that grip around the steering wheel. So I've gotten it sewn there, and then you're just going to keep pulling it through until you get to the other end. And then I like to sew it in place at the other end, just so that I keep that elastic in place. Okay, so I've gotten it through at the other end. I'm going to take my elastic, or my safety pin off the elastic, and I'm holding that elastic in place. And then I'm just going to place a few more stitches just to hold this other end in place, just so that that doesn't pull out while I am threading the other side. So once you've gotten that, then you're going to go through and you're going to do the other side too. So we've gotten one side all bunched up, we got the elastic, and so we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so once we have the elastic on both sides, now we are going to attach the ends together. So I am just using a regular sewing machine, and so I don't want these raw edges because that's just, it doesn't look good even on the inside. So I do enclosed seams on this, and so it just makes it look nicer, and it just works better for this. So if you're using a serger, you could probably just serge those edges and whatever, and it'd be fine. But I do have a serger. I just need to learn how to use it. So I'm just using a regular sewing machine. So what we're going to do is, so normally when you're doing your things, you're putting right sides together because you want your seams on the inside. Well, because we're doing enclosed seams, we're going to put wrong sides together. So make sure that there's no twisty. Make sure that this is all like, it's not twisted when you put these together, but you're going to put wrong sides together. And so line up those edges there. And then we're just going to stitch straight across here. So stitch across that with the wrong sides together. All right, so we've got wrong sides together stitched. You can kind of see, and so we've got this raw edge here. We're going to trim this up just a little bit, just so that, try to see if it'll focus. So it's just like a little bit where it's, you're going to enclose that little bit. So you don't want to have quite as much to enclose because otherwise the ends could be peeking out. So you want to just trim that up just a little bit, get that close so that you can kind of see along my seam there, that it's just real short there. All right, so once we have that, then we are going to take it and we're going to fold this around so that now our seam is enclosed. And so now we have right sides together with our little seam enclosed in there. And so my sewing machine does not like to sew super thick from the start. I've tried using the little like piece of fabric to try to help it. It does not like it. So I start in the middle and kind of go to both sides. So that's how I do that. But you basically take it, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, and I'll kind of just start somewhere around in the middle, and you want to make sure you're like, I'm going to try to zoom. You want to make sure you're on the side enough that you have your seam enclosed. So usually kind of the edge of this goes along the edge of your foot there. And then we're just going to sew that with a straight stitch there. All right. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. It kind of gets stuck sometimes with that. Okay. And so we're just going to trim that. Oop, I'm going to zoom back out. If it will. Okay. And so then you're just going to flip it over and you're going to start from the middle and sew the other side. Okay, so once you've sewn both ways, and so you have that enclosed there, you can flip that back around. And so you can see you have a nice seam there and your seams are enclosed. And then you have your steering wheel cover, so you can kind of just stretch out some of that elastic, kind of get it unbunched and stuff. And then you have a fun steering wheel cover for your car. So let me know if y'all have any questions. Have a good day.